You didn't ask to speak to him. He asked to speak to you. So I'm sitting here thinking, I could talk my way out of this. Well, sometimes you can't. And we just keep turning on to more and more isolated farm territory. It's like, they're absolutely going to kill me. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, who's going to teach my kid to play ball?
This is Inside the Life with Giovanni and Dutch, produced by the Mob Museum. Giovanni, Rocco, and Dutch McAlpin are former police and federal task force operatives. They infiltrated drug cartels, outlaw motorcycle groups, and the mafia. Now, they share their stories, along with others who have gone inside the life.
I like to title this one, The Return of the One Who Knocks. So in this one, Terry returns for another interview with us.
Terry's everybody's teacher in a way because he has a different brain capacity. He was able to learn how to speak French, convert to Islam, to get information needed to prosecute some of the highest terrorists the country's ever known.
You know, I hope our audience sees the stories he shares about the cyber side of things. You know, he came into this career so much so that he was able to infiltrate the hacking group for 3 days that turned into a 3-year investigation infiltrating al-Qaida. That's insane, you know?
He said the only thing he never wanted to do was be undercover because he wanted to hang out with the FBI agents. He wanted to be around FBI people. Yeah. And somehow his career took him down a different path, and I think he spent most of his time undercover.
He's a patriot.
Well, he went against the man who trained and fought side by side against the Russians with bin Laden.
And, you know, if you haven't watched it already, Terry was a guest of ours on one episode previous to this one. So please go back, watch that episode. It gives a different context into what Terry did for his career and the cyber stuff.
Welcome back to Inside the Life at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. We're here for our second interview with Terry Rankhorn. Terry is a 20-year undercover, 20-year FBI agent, supervisory special agent. And in the first episode, we got the interview. You got to take us down the path of working in cybercrime and working undercover cybercrime, and we touched during that interview about your case, the most impacting case against al-Qaida.
So the case against al-Qaida was obviously after 9/11, we wanted to be able to hit them back. The FBI worked a lot of cases. I'm not saying the people they worked them against weren't bad people. You had students who can kill you just as dead as anyone else. But there were some students who were along the lines of, you know, I'm going to blow up the Sears Tower if I had a bomb, and if I had a car to drive the bomb up there, and if I knew how to, you know, work the bomb and so forth. Bad people, but lower on the threat scale. Mm-hmm. It came to pass that there were actually some real al-Qaida actors out there. I mean, real proper al-Qaida, some that actually had fought with bin Laden in Afghanistan against the Russians and had now risen to leadership positions. And we discussed before, you know, the concept of the human sources, the confidential human sources. Well, there was a gentleman in the Taliban, and he had put two and two together. You remember that deck of cards that was floating around with people's name, and that deck of cards was always changing, right? I
still have mine, yeah.
And he decided, you know, pretty soon my turn is going to come up on that deck of cards. So he's like, how about I help you guys out? You guys grant me citizenship. And that's ended up what happened. And I will say the guy absolutely earned his citizenship.
Yeah.
And so he began working with them in a human source capacity, working with this cell. And for example, I mean, this guy met Ayman al-Zawahiri. That's how high up it was.
Right.
And there came a point when this group needed some things. Well, he couldn't provide that. They obviously knew that, but he did great think on his part. Said, well, I think I know a guy that might be able to do this. And so then he reached out to his handlers and said, hey, do you guys have anybody that could come in and give these guys what they need? Which is on the scale of undercover transactions, that's pretty light lift, right? It's like, hey, I need a gun. Hey, I need a cloned cell phone. Hey, I need an encrypted laptop. Whatever the case may be, the guy comes in undercover. It's purely transactional, and you're gone, right? So they went on a mad scramble. Said, hey, who knows how to do this particular thing and would be conversant with this particular type of equipment and products? and is undercover certified, because you do not want to send somebody that's not undercover certified against people who would absolutely, positively kill you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was chosen. It was a very quick choosing process. And over the phone, they said, listen, this is going to be transactional. You need to get in and you need to get out. These guys are going to hate you. Just do your business and go. Told that to my wife. She's like, yeah, I guess that's okay. Fortunately, I was married to an agent, a very, very understanding agent. But she said, yeah, that's fine. I know you want to do this. And everybody wanted to pay these people back for what they did with us. So I go and I meet with them. We transact the business. And they didn't. Well, one guy always hated me. But the main guy, the guy who mattered, didn't hate me. He saw an opportunity, because I was able to not upset him. And he saw, and I was able to throw a few things out there that said, hey, this guy might be of use to me down the future. He saw an opportunity to exploit me and use me, which is fine. However, you need to get across the finish line, you get across the finish line.
Right.
And in fact, later on in the case, I did something where I had to send some money somewhere. And as part of it, we really needed to enumerate what was going on. And there were there's recording things the recorded conversation. And so during it, it was like, okay, I need you to send this to so-and-so in Paris. He will send it to so-and-so in Milan, who will then send it to here and then send it there.
Are you communicating with them online? Or are you communicating with them in person?
This was 100%.
Okay, so this is,
and you said later on, this is a cameo for all intents and purposes. You're going in a short thing, delivering your product,
3
and
days.
leaving. This
3
is
days.
3 days.
3 days.
Right.
Which is how I sold it to my wife.
Yeah.
And but that little aside, I was going to tell you that I kept screwing it up. I was like, so send it here? And he was like, no. Send it here. Well, what if I sit here? No, send it here.
Right.
Well, I wanted to get them to
You were doing it purposefully.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And afterwards I leave and they say, they're like, he's a nice kid, but goddamn, he's stupid.
And you want that. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing in our world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to get a look at what's a bad guy look like that you're dealing with? Is he intellectually intelligent?
My God.
I mean,
he was the scariest person I ever met in my life. He wasn't quite as big as you, Dutch, but he was close. And he was the scariest kind of person. The guy who is calm, collected, quiet,
Intellectual.
he had a PhD, but he spoke 3 languages.
Right.
And but he was a very powerful, strong guy. Yeah. And he was very calm and composed. And when you would look, one of the most unsettling things is he was very situationally aware, because he would look at you and he's looking at you and you move, he would just stare at you and you'd move your hand and be like,
right.
So
everything was purposeful in his brain.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, this guy knows exactly who I am. He's going to kill me.
Yeah.
In fact, one time he was peeling an onion with a huge butcher knife, and he's like looking at me and he was asking me questions, and I was answering. He's like, and I could tell. It's like, oh my God, he's going to plunge that thing right in my chest.
But he saw a need for you. He saw a value in you. Like you said, he exploited you. And just to paint that picture, he truly does look at you as, right then, all eyes are on al-Qaida from the U.S. Everybody's attacking him. You're a Westerner, right? He hates your guts. He just took out 3,000 people that look just like you, right?
Right.
Or represent who you are.
Right.
But I have a purpose for you. And that's why I didn't
exactly
kill you.
right.
But at the same time, you can only imagine what's going on in his PhD brain. He would love to cut you to pieces.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're kafir. And
this is the one that likes you.
Well, at that point, as it's more accurate what Giovanni said,
He saw a need.
he saw an opportunity to use me. I've told people before, I've said, the KKK would buy something from a black person if they had the right need.
Without a doubt.
They just would.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the niche that I got myself in. Well, and that 3 days turned into like, hey, can you also? And then that turned into another, hey, can you also? And then 2 weeks into the case, my wife tells me, she's like, I think I'm pregnant with our first kid.
Good God.
And so, this case, it goes on, it goes on.
Did you reconsider when you found out she's pregnant? You've now met this super dangerous person. You know that it's a huge threat. You guys are about to have a baby. Were you thinking maybe I shouldn't do this?
No, I thought like a crackhead. It's like, I'll quit after the next hit. Right?
Yeah.
One more.
You know,
One more.
Just one more. Just
Yeah.
one more. One more meat.
Yep.
And now I've got him.
Right.
One more meat. Yeah, but, something just popped up on the next meat. We had no idea about this. Well, let me just put that to bed. 6 months down the road, honey, I really need to move there. And then I did. And then, hey, I need to change religions. I need to convert. So it just momentum. It just kept going.
Before we go down the road of you converting, right? I want to paint the picture for our audience because a lot of times we suffer mentally. Your wife is pregnant. Just one more hit, right? Just one more day, one more meet. I'll get this one done. I'm done. But I want to paint the picture of what's going on the news report. Journalists are being slaughtered.
Yes.
Westerners are being killed.
Yes.
They're taking hostages. They're burning people alive.
Yes.
They're doing the most hideous, heinous things to human beings. And that is all open public source record.
And
right?
you're the one
and
guy.
You're the guy
that is really hurt. Well, I'm not the one guy. There's SEALs dying over there.
Yeah.
But I am a guy that is hitting them with a sucker punch that they're not seeing coming.
And at any minute, this guy decides you are no longer useful to me, and I'm just going to use you to deliver the next message over to the Westerners.
Absolutely.
So that's got to be in the back of your brain.
All the time. Imagine the first time you sleep in the presence of the enemy. And you're going to bed thinking, I don't know if I'll wake up, because what if these guys just want me to go to bed?
They really offered you a bed and they just want to give you a place to sleep. We've been there. And you sleep with one eye open.
As long as you can, and then you
God,
can't.
fall
and then
asleep.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, let's hope for the best.
Yeah. So now you're moving along with him. At what point do you decide? At what point do you have to convert your religions?
It got to a point. So it started on the arc of exactly what you said. I think I can use this guy. Then it got to the point, you know what? This guy's done so much for us. He can't be a cop or would be in jail or dead. So I think maybe he's actually useful. But if we really want to trust him, he really needs to be one of us. I'm never really going to be one. You're never.
Right, no.
If they're Pakistani and they're Arab, you're never going to be one of them unless you are a Pakistani Arab, period.
But they saw you as a sympathizer.
Yes.
Okay.
But
They're very strict on their beliefs, and if you at least convert to Islam,
exactly.
now I can somehow justify working with you.
That is exactly right.
I'm never going to love you. I'm never going to brother you. But what's that? I'll partner with you as long as you convert.
Let you in the tent.
Yeah.
At least.
Okay.
Well, it's an organized crime trait, right? It's a historical trait amongst organized crime. They see a value in you and they manipulate it and they make you yours, whether you're a business owner or whatever. So it goes to traditional organized crime.
Absolutely. And the Hollywood image of Undercover is dressed like this, having champagne and caviar in a 5-star
Getting on your
restaurant.
jet, right? Yeah.
On the jet, right, negotiating their deals. In reality, you'd sit around and the food would be on the floor and you'd sit there and they would buy like these 2-liter soda bottles, right? And they'd have like cups that were never washed and they'd pour the soda in there. Well, at the end of the meal, whatever soda's that, they'd pour it back into the 2-liter.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a germaphobe. I can't.
You would die. Well,
But you're ingratiating
one of the guys
yourself.
had TB, I found out later. And I was like, and my wife was pregnant. So I'm thinking, if I go back and, if I give her TB and the baby dies. And so there's just a million different things you're thinking about.
Right.
And in the rare instance, we would go out into a place and eat. It would be some place with, the Formica pried off of the table and raw particle board and flies buzzing around everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the glamorous UC life there.
But let me into your brain. You're loving this.
I'm loving the impact because when I would finally get to meet with you do these things called SDRs where you go a million different places to make sure you're not followed, and you then could meet with actual real government people, case agents, and they would give you updates on, okay, here's what you did, here is the impact of it. I mean, one of the things I did, it actually went to the president in the White House.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? It did?
When you're living that hard, like you said, you're eating, you've been taken away from your wife and your new baby, you're living this hard. Do you think that those updates kind of help uplift you and let you continue to work? Were they important to you in that way?
No, that was hard. And it's a constant, in the military, they call it survivorship grief, where that you're with your buddy, your buddy all of a sudden gets his head blown off by a sniper, and immediately for that half second, you feel relief that it wasn't you, and then you feel guilty the rest of your life for that. You try not to think about your home life then, but then you feel really guilty about that later on, because she was an agent. So she had to juggle being a single mom, handling a baby, husband somewhere off, and maybe okay, maybe not okay. And it had to be hellish for her.
And I don't want to get off track with it, but it's important. I think, we talked about it on other episodes. It's really hard on us as operatives. It's extremely hard on us, because I used to be in a situation and get myself into something where I didn't know if I was going to make it out, and go literally in the back of my brain going, when's the last time I kissed him? When's the last time I said I love him? I didn't before I left the house. I didn't. Like, I would think about that in the middle of somebody threatening me to chop me up into pieces.
If you've ever had one of those moments, it is unforgettable. I remember mine to this minute. And that is exactly what you feel. You've already given up hope.
Guilt washes over you.
Yeah, and you're sitting there going through it. I wish I'd done this.
Tell us that minute.
So I was on a case once where so when you're trained in the school, everything always breaks to the worst case scenario. It just is. So you begin thinking ninja are going to jump out of a closet on you, wherever you're doing undercover. Well, then you find out that you were probably a decent undercover when you went to the school, because most people have done undercover work going to the school. Coming out of the school, it's the best school in the world for this type of thing. We have students from all over the world. Their agencies send them to our undercover school to be trained. So coming out of it, you're really good. So you start doing these cases, and really difficult cases that people are saying, I don't know if you'll be able to get it done. You knock it out of the park. Then you knock it out of the park. Then you knock it out of the park. Then something goes a little wrong. You like, oh boy, you recover. You're like, oh, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
Until you're not.
Yeah.
And I got too aggressive asking questions because I was getting frustrated. Things were taking too long. I was like, I really want to talk to this guy. He's like, why do I got to keep dealing with this guy? That I need to be dealing with this guy over here.
Yeah.
Well, it's a guy that you probably needed to leave alone for a little bit longer. You didn't ask to speak to him. He asked to speak to you. But I thought, I'm solid. Everything I'm doing, I haven't really made any mistakes as far as you know.
Right.
And that's the nature of it, right? You don't know if you made a mistake.
Yeah.
And so I come out of a place one time, and I came out with a source. And when we came out, there were these two cars. And all of a sudden, the source recognized one of the guys. And he goes over, well, they just stuffed him in a car. Well, now there's another guy driving this other car. He pulls up in front of me. It was a high-end Infiniti. Oh, my God, I remember that car to this day. I wouldn't get in them for a long time afterwards. And the driver's in there, and then these two henchmen get out. And they were your size or bigger. And they're like, come on. We need to take a ride. It's like, well, I want to take a ride. Well, now a million things are going through your mind. And it just happens like that. It's like slipping on ice. You don't have time to sit around and think about a plan. And meanwhile, the source is now driving off in the car. And if I punch one of these guys and run, they'll kill him.
Right.
And he's not an agent, but he's still a human being.
Right.
And I like the guy. He always had my back. So I'm sitting here thinking, I could talk my way out of this. Well, sometimes you can't. And in the car I go, and these two geezers are next to me, and I'm all hemmed up. And I'm trying to talk to them. And they will say nothing. They're just stoic, just looking straight ahead. I'm trying to talk to the driver. And if you've ever been in a high Infiniti, it's a really quiet car. And I still remember looking up between the seats, and I saw the dashboard, and it's like this polished wood. It's really nice. And I fixated, they had a clock, but it wasn't digital. It was an analog clock with like these fancy hands that was used Roman numerals.
Roman numerals, yeah.
And we're going along, and we're going out through these vineyards. And we just keep turning onto more and more isolated farm territory. I was like, they're absolutely going to kill me. And they're going to bury me out here. That's why we're going out in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, I'm dead. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, who's going to teach my kid to play ball? Who's going to, what if I've got to hold him more time? What if I got to talk? What if I could have just made it until he could understand me when I talked to him? Those things are going through, but you've already resigned. You're already past the second stage of grief, right? And or you're at the last stage, you're even acceptance. And I remember looking at that clock and then just stopping thinking, like, man, that's a nice clock. Now, why would they waste all that money putting a nice clock like that in a car?
Yep.
End of the story, obviously, it didn't kill me. They were taking me to meet the guy because, like I said, you didn't meet him. He sends for you.
Yeah.
And so, man, I tell you what, that bothered me for years. And it bothered me more than I realized it bothered me. And truth be told, we always like to think we're Vin Diesel or something doing undercover. Nothing bothers me. I got thick skin. We got to have thick skin to do this work.
Right.
Say that after something like that happens to you. And there was a undercover agent in the FBI by the name of George Bokelberg, who was a PhD psychologist and actually owned a practice before he became an agent. He worked in a unit in the bureau that was responsible for psychologically evaluating people. And he spotted me and he's like, "Ooh, you're best up, son." And then they had a contract practicing psychologist named Amy Grubb. Had it not been for those two people, I'd be an unemployed.
Well, because when you're in that moment, you realize your training kicks in, right? At least in my moment, I realized, and just so everybody watching our audience, we didn't lay down. We didn't just accept, well, this is where they're going to kill me. That washes over you, right? But then you realize, out of somewhere, subconsciously, your training kicks in, and everything I was taught and everything I learned at school. And again, because we're on a school, I'm going to bring it up. You were my guy. You were my pivotal. And that's why, it's an honor to sit here with you, because so much so that I wrote about it in my book, our interaction when we met, like the first time, because it was that my ability to get through you and that scenario at school, when I had gone through those moments when your training always kicks in, your guilt washes over you, the trauma comes over you, but just somehow that's when you realize the training you have and the ability you have as an undercover, your ability to operate at such a high level where you don't even know your brain is using different parts of it. It's so mental, and you survive the moment.
Well, I'm honored, first of all, what you said is truly an honor, but you're right. And that's one of the key points of the school is we've got to make sure that you have that to be able to kick in, because had I not maintained some modicum of training and operational discipline, start fighting these guys in the back of the car or something, probably would be dead.
That it could be your demise. Sure. Yeah.
So as you said, you think this through, you're given a toolbox at the school and you start cycling through that tools. Well, that won't work. That won't work. Let me try this one. Let me try that one.
Right.
You can't learn it. It's not something you can learn. It's something you experience, right? Like
an
you're talking about that moment that becomes like this tunnel vision. Everything slows down and your brain has full control.
When I would offer my input to this, after being there a long time as an instructor, I'd offer my input for improvement of curriculum. And I said exactly that. This is something you can't learn, but you can improve it. Mm-hmm. So we have to be able to pick the people out who have it, and then we will improve it. We'll perfect it for them.
Yeah. And even though you're okay, and even though you lived through it, you hit a certain spot in your brain that's permanent. And that's why you had so much trouble. You didn't get hurt. You didn't die. That's not the end of the story, though, right? You were still hurt.
See, that's the problem. A lot of people don't think about. People, police, military, they experience the same thing. What happens is, if you're ever pushed to that point in your life, then a loud car door slamming puts you back into that instantly. Yeah. And whatever stimulus brings you right back to that 90% point where you were before. Mm-hmm. There's no ramp up.
Right.
Because you got to survive. I got to survive.
And I had an experience. I'm going to talk about it. That my experience, I had many, many years of doing undercover work before I went to the school. And when I walked into that scenario when you were there, it was like going up against something I was unfamiliar with. It was the point in school where I didn't know what foreign counterintelligence was. I thought I was just being trained to buy more guns, buy more dope, do whatever, murder for hires. I had no idea we were going to be trained to be spies. And then when I got into your scenario, when I walked in there, now Breaking Bad wasn't around at the time, but you were my Walter White. You were that Heisenberg when I walked in. And I literally, I didn't lay down and fail, but I knew at that moment in school, oh, I'm done. It was a good run. And to your point, we discussed it before, the ratio of graduates, right? It's a very low number of people who graduate this school. They put a ton of money, millions of dollars into the school, and not many people graduated. So now I walk in, I went to sleep that night, and my guy who trained me up for FCI stuff, I walk in and I looked at you and I said, I'm done. This is my moment where I'm going to lay down, and my moment in the infinity. And I sat there and I was like, yeah, all right, so screw it. I just sat, and you turn around dressed very similar to what you are. Mm-hmm. Every time I see you, I pee a little bit still. And it brings that out in you, right? It brings that trauma out. And you turned around, and that moment of you looking like Heisenberg and speaking 2 languages. I speak Jersey. That's the only language I speak. And now you're speaking different languages. And I was, okay, I'm done here. But then there was something inside of me where, okay, well, he's just another human being. Let me see if I could do this. And my instincts kicked in. My street level instinct, the stuff that we knew growing up, kicked in. And it's you just got out of it in that moment. So, and I guess I say it because here at the museum we have a display, and it's pop culture, mob and pop culture. And I think of you every time we walk by the Walter White bio suit that they have on display, or I look at the different displays that they have from the scene of Breaking Bad. But again, you did such a great job. But that defining moment changed my career, changed everything we did operationally from that moment, my interactions with you, because it put me on a different level. That is an absolute, true honor to hear that. Thank you. No, thank you.
Well, I mean, you went through those things, and then you share those things. And then now we have taken parts of the things and we can use them as part of our toolbox, if you will. You know what I mean?
And that's the way we grow as a society, right? You take, you guys, you're probably better undercovers than me, but I helped contribute to that.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Without a doubt.
I always say before, people say, didn't you taught Giovanni, right? I was like, yeah. I was like, hey, what's that guy's name that taught Bruce Lee? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, exactly.
This is a perfect time to take a break, and we'll be back in a little bit with more with Terry Rankhorn. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Life. We're going to continue on with our guest, FBI retired supervisory special agent, Terry Rankhorn. Terry, we were, just before the break, we started to touch on some of the school and our interaction at the school, but the three of us, I want to chop it up about the school a little bit because so many questions we get is about the training. Right. And we know we can't disclose a lot to our audience. We want to share. I think this is a great opportunity with the three of us to talk about tradecraft without talking about tradecraft.
Fair enough.
To give I would love for people to be immersed into what we do, because the men and women that go through our school, man, it's a huge sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice in our family, and it's a lot of time out of our lives. And I think it was a pivotal moment. It changed my life. And you touched on something earlier about the mental component of it. Like for us to be operating for so many years before we went to that school, we didn't have any psychological services offered to us.
That's right.
It was just like doom and gloom. We got hired to kill people or got paid for this or paid for that, or a drug deal or a gun deal went bad. Shit broke bad. We dealt with it. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know the psychological services were out there. So let's just chop it up for a couple minutes and talk about your experience with the school, if you can.
Sure. So I think I mentioned before that when I went to the school, I had no idea. I thought it was just a regular FBI school where you went from 8 to 4 in the afternoon, went and worked out, then went to what we called the boardroom, which was like sort of a bar at Quantico, and had some beers. Yeah. And the first night, it's like 11:30 at night, and we'd done all the classroom work. Now we're doing these undercover practice scenarios, and I'm thinking, are they like trying to take Friday off or something? What are we doing here? And I realized then the intensity of this school. And in the second night when we were doing these scenarios, someone got very confrontational in the scenario, and I was like, what's your problem, pal? And next thing you know, it was a physical altercation, and this guy was about 6'5", built like Dutch, and it didn't fare well in that.
Right.
And I'm like, I've never been hit before in a school. How is this legit?
But different things impact different people, like the physical altercation. I think you were starting to talk about your particular scenario. I think he can handle a violent confrontation. When you handed him a computer chip or a jump drive or whatever it was, that was his confrontation. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I actually wrote that scenario for that specific reason, because people think, so there is no axes on which every case turns. You don't say, this is a credit card fraud case. People are stealing credit cards at the gas pump and reselling them to people. Okay, purely white collar crime. Except you find out it's a street gang doing it. So you go to meet them and you've got a briefcase full of, $100,000. Well, you show up, you guys, street guys, you know this. You show up in a hotel room, some Motel 6 with a briefcase with $100,000 in it, you're never going out of that room again, right? So you can't say, well, we want to train people to do white collar work. We want to train people to do only violent crime work, because you might go into a situation with some Crips in the housing projects, and you go up there and sitting there on the table is a ton of money. And it's like, hey, what are you guys going to do with that cash? It's like, I don't know. It's like, well, I can help you out with that. So you pass up a huge opportunity if you're not trained in all the different aspects of it.
Right.
And people say, yeah, but we're going to wash out a lot of people. And they do. The school washes out a ton of people that can't adapt. But the ones that remain are the ones that can really do anything. Imagine the FBI hostage rescue team. If they say, well, I'm really good at assaulting a single family dwelling, I'm the best. Or I'm really good at assaulting a high-rise apartment in the projects, or I'm really good at assaulting the boat. What happens when you have an outlier? Oh, I'm sorry, kid, you're done. I can't help you. You need somebody that's at least competent in all of the areas and probably stands out significantly in one or two of them.
Right. Yeah. And for me, it was the training I received leading up to that is when everything started to come into focus for me. Right. I didn't realize how much training I was receiving at the school until I came up against you. And to paint the picture, it's an undisclosed location. We're in a high-rise building. It's a super high-end apartment. You're sitting there. I walk in the room. I had to sit in a chair like Dutch. Right. And they sat me down after I got through the door. And I'm not going to give the whole scenario away, but it's very physical. Two menacing guys, like bigger than him. Menacing dudes, choke you by the throat. You get passed down. I'm like, whew, I got through it, right? And they're like, here, have a seat. And the one guy has a gun on me. And then here's this dude standing there, bald guy with his back to me in this $2,000, $3,000 suit, menacing. Skyline behind him. It's night sky, and the lights are glistening. And he just turns around like, again, like Heisenberg, and just looks at me. I'm sitting because I've already committed. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not dressing up in their suits. I'm not dressing up for the scenario, because everybody used to dress up accordingly, right? Going into this. And everybody else was dressed like they were going to a wedding. Me, I was skull t-shirt. I walk in, I sit down. He turns around, and instantly you can see he's like offended that I'm in a t-shirt. And we go through this dialogue that we have. And I'm like, yeah, So then he asked me for a particular object. And I said, oh, yeah, but here you go. Here it is. And I go to give it to him. And he turns around. Imagine me, a kid from Jersey. He's like, puts his hands up. I'm not touching that after you touched it, and gives me a look like now I'm like pissed, and makes me put it on the table, offers me a bag of money, and pushes the bag of money to me. He says, oh, by the way, here's the money. So I'm not here to pick up money. I don't know what that shit is. And he's looking at me cockeyed like, what are you doing? Like, who the hell are you? And I went totally right into survival mode, which we talked about earlier. And I was like, if I'm going out my own way. I'm going to go out as me. But it was a pivotal moment where I learned, you can't mess up you. It's the best training we ever had. Just be yourself. And that was my pivotal moment that the school gave me.
That's exactly right. You evaluate a circumstance. You have to be you. And you apply you, but you apply it using all the benchmarks that we taught you. You were probably, and I ran that scenario for, I think, 14 years. You were one of the top 5 guys that ever went through it.
Thanks.
I can only remember 5 guys, and you're one of them that actually really did well.
Yeah, well, I was terrorized. I still remember you, and I'm still terrorized by it, sitting in that suit. But it was, it is that moment of you realize you're capable of so much more. You really are. You really are. And that's when I realized, when people say to you, oh, you lie for a living, you lie and you're portraying, we're actors. We're not actors. You're not actors by any means. You're being your true Dutch. You're being your true Terry. You're being your true Giovanni. Whoever that guy is, whoever your mom raised you to be, that kid that was doing that silly little thing, teasing his mom and busting chops, that's the person you are undercover. It's just how much you bring into it, how much of your true self you bring to the table.
You're absolutely right. We identify people that have that right off the bat, sharpen it, and then give you some enhanced tools to really make it shine. So, for example, don't say it out loud. Think of a country that starts with a D. You're thinking of Denmark, right? Well,
not Detroit.
Yeah. So it was almost nothing you could have thought of other than Denmark, right? So, but I let you think of it, and you're like, well, I couldn't have been a cop. I was the one that thought of that place to meet.
Right.
Well, it's because we teach you some techniques to narrow down their options, where that they only have 2 or 3, although they think they have an infinite. They only have 2 or 3, and we're prepared at each place. Like, you pick the place.
Yeah.
I think there's some those character traits are important, but also probably something we're forgetting, and that you mentioned earlier in this is you need people with the highest level of integrity. You need people that can be trusted with secrets, trusted with money, trusted with things that could change the political atmosphere anytime. So like you're not only thinking, how do I survive this and how am I going to be successful at this, but also what kind of people can we trust with this information?
Yeah.
I know the things that you did and you still can't talk about it. I know it impacted the world, and I know you're never going to get an award for that and no one's ever going to know about it, but you still chose to do it. And the school helps find that level of integrity that they need too, right?
That's absolutely right. I mean, I'm humbled you say those kind things about me, but all of the undercovers, I mean, you're sitting there with $100,000 on the table. You're sitting there with cocaine. You're sitting there with prostitutes. You're sitting there meeting a politician that maybe you hate that guy on TV. You disagree with everything he's saying, but you're not going to set him up. You're not going to entrap him.
Right.
You're going to let the conversation play out. If he is crooked, he's going to be the one that makes the deal, but you're not going to insert yourself into that to try to torpedo him just because you don't like him.
Right, right. And I think, looking back statistically, I wish somebody would do something and show the statistics of how many undercovers that's successful, the high-level operators, how many have trauma? Because it's the same story. I grew up poor. I grew up in a violent environment. I grew up in this, and it's like I'm lucky to be where I am. We all share that same experience, like the elite guys that are running it, because, again, where we're immersed into. And then the commitment you're making to your job. The FBI agents and, they have to come through the background and they do their clearance and they get their clearance. We voluntarily, at the level we're operating, to give our bank records, our personal bank records over. I don't think I'm giving away anything. I could talk about it.
Yeah.
No. We have to give up in case another country, another government corrupts us, so we give our personal assets, our personal bank information, just so we can operate for our government and our country. So it's like,
very few. I'd honestly forgotten about me. You have to provide them your financials, your bank statements, so they can make sure that you're honest. Which was fine with me. I was like, hey, I don't want to be accused of anything. Take my stuff.
Yeah. But it's a level of commitment that we had to do the mission that we were picked to, and got. I'm proud to be given that ability to do that.
And you did it well.
But thank you. And the sleep deprivation we didn't talk about.
Oh boy.
I mean, this school was weeks long, so. The way they starved you for sleep, and I didn't understand why they're doing it. I thought it was just like a
hazing,
a hazing thing, right? I didn't understand it. It's really, truly not. It truly is to make your brain suffer, and then the training begins. Then you get immersed. When you can't think about when you forget your own name, they turn the heat up in the room, make you sweat.
But real life, one of the most dangerous meets I ever did in my career, I ended up having 103-degree temperature and fever, but I really needed to get that meat done. And it got so bad, I ended up to lay down at the guy's place, and he got worried about me. And he's got like a wet rag and was like putting it on my face because he's afraid I was going to get brain damage. So sleep deprivation prepares you for something like that.
Yeah.
But sleep deprivation, people don't realize how everybody's pulled an all-nighter at one point. Pull 2. And then get 2 or 3 hours the next night and see how well you do.
Yeah.
Travel. Don't get any sleep, have a briefing, count in some money, sign some forms, get some chain of custody, now go do a case, now come back by yourself, don't have nobody to talk to,
right?
And then wake up in a couple hours and do it again, and every time you close your eyes, all you do is see your time riding in your infinity.
Meanwhile, you're
desert.
remembering a phone number of a phone they just gave you 5 minutes ago. So,
Right. And trying to remember your own name that you picked in the back, all your backstopping and your legend that you created, which is insane.
And I got arrested one time undercover, and I had a gun.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to lie to street criminal. There was a young female who was going to process me. At the last second, she goes, this big old geezer comes with a big walrus mustache. And I'm like, oh, I'm finished. It was Sergeant. And whatever reason, the good Lord was looking. I remember my social. I remembered everything. And it was.
Yeah. And, it's funny you mentioned it, getting arrested. Like people go, oh, have you ever been arrested? Yeah, I've been arrested in cases, the takedowns. But you don't realize how dangerous that is. Because so many law enforcement, I'm talking state, local, federal, you would do the briefing and say, okay, Dutch is the undercover, remember what he's wearing. And then you'd have some young rookie who's a brand new applicant squad or something. He goes out on the arrest and he said, do not point your gun at me. And they come out of the car running and you got the barrel of the gun pointing right at your finger on the trigger. And they're just so vapor locked and so deregulated,
Or they didn't get the word of who you were.
Right, even worse.
Or maybe they just happened upon you. And they're not even part of they weren't even part of the briefing.
And then your own start to, I've had guys, local cops, and just put handcuffs on you and then think it's funny to put the handcuffs on super tight, yoke you up, take your arms, bend them all the way up,
Yep.
and, do silly things.
Yep.
But then you also have, a lot of things you didn't realize was going to come your way is the mental aspect of it and the psychological component of, Terry, you and your friends, your al-Qaida friends, don't be jerking around too long. Or, the different agencies, I can imagine when you were infiltrating al-Qaida, what was that like? Because the different agencies, our government wants to pick at you because you're an asset inside this thing.
I worked for 2 different agencies,
Right.
you and another. And there was always a struggle.
Yeah. They
And-
want time with you.
Yeah, there's always competing goals, and you do this. Well, I can't do this and that. They're mutually exclusive. Yeah. Well, do this, and they're like, well, no. We have primary jurisdiction in this, and so no, we want him to do that. Yeah. And it's back and forth. It's like, man, you two, you're like a married couple. Please figure out where we're going for Christmas.
Or you get the wrong case agent and they write a script for you. And they tell you, hey, when you go in tomorrow, ask that big monster.
That's
the guy
every
that's cutting
case
a piece of fruit. It is. It really is.
Almost.
I wrote a script for you. I need you to find out this, this, and this. Or this agency wants you to find out this, this, and this for them.
Or I'm going in a $3,000 suit.
Right.
And they give you some G-Shock that came off the shelf at the discount
Doesn't fit
store.
in exactly.
And so then they're like, well, just tell them. That's the famous saying, right? Well, just tell them this. Just tell them that.
Yeah.
You tell them.
Yeah,
you go
quick.
in there and do it.
It's Friday. Be quick. It's the weekend coming up. Be quick with these guys.
Exactly.
Don't waste time. Really, don't waste time.
Yeah.
So you get caught in the middle of this. As an undercover, you're accused of being rogue at times because you start to get a little edgy, and you start to get a little ticked off that they're making these negative comments to you. And, then you have some supervisors say, oh, he's rogue. Terry's rogue. He's got an attitude about
Hard
him.
to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to work with, difficult to control. But it's not easy.
No, it's not. And then you another problem, at least I'm not sure how it is with the task force, but with the FBI is you're rarely ever working a big undercover case for your division. And the division is the office in which you work. So you're working for somewhere else. Well, meanwhile, you're on the books for that division, and they try to run the FBI like a car manufacturing plant where it's like, what work did this squad do during this quarter?
Right.
Well, if there's 8 people, you're 1/8 of that, and you're always gone.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to suffer. You're never going to you're never going to be even at the 90% level. And they're upset about that sometimes.
Yeah. There's a lot of infighting. It gets shitty once in a while. So,
Right.
Hey, with that, we got to take another break, Terry, and we'll be back with Terry Rankhorn and some more stories. Hey, everybody, we're back with Terry Rankhorn. I think we left off with the little bit of the school, and I guess just to finish up with that and the training that we had, there was no real preparation on how close we got to targets. The relationships we build, how deep undercover is.
Right.
There's undercover operations, but referred to as different groups we had, right? The different level of operations, and the group ones that we worked were the most intense and the most high profile within the government, and Bureau was getting updates, and the Hoover building was getting, sometimes the director was getting updates on our cases. So when you're working that kind of thing, you go down this rabbit hole of people get close to you. Like
Yes.
the day you mentioned you had 103 fever, I don't know why you didn't call in sick that day. You could have just picked up the phone and called like you were calling out of school. We don't have that ability we didn't have the ability to call timeout.
Well, when I was that sick, I was legitimately worried, and I had someone that I'm supposed to call. He wouldn't answer his phone. It was a
Contact
weekend.
agent.
Yeah. I called and I called and I called, and I was just sick and sick. It's like, I really need to do this meet. This guy's going to leave, and I got to get him what I got to get him. And this, a really, really dangerous, violent guy was worried about me. He said, bring him in the back here, bring him, lay him down in my bed, here, I'm worried about him. He's really sick. Right. And they didn't want to take me to a hospital because they didn't want to deal with, there's a lot of reasons they didn't, but he's like trying to put cold water on my face. And this is the guy that, at a minimum, going to get the guy locked up and maybe lose his life because he's actually a citizen of another country and be deported, and they're not going to deal with him well.
Right.
And that's what you're doing. So you're right. Yeah, I'm saving people from being killed in another burning building, but here I am betraying a guy that thinks he's saving my life. He's trying to help me out.
It's funny because those moments, you have those glimpses, right? It's a split second where you can see the person, and we've already done our due diligence. We've already made sure that they are the true criminals that they are, right? And we went through those steps and took for the investigation. But then we see that glimpse of, this guy or girl could be a really good person. And that moment you saw his true heart. But then I think quickly realized, how long was it before he showed you how treacherous and deadly he was again?
Oh, if he'd known who I was, there's no question he'd have killed me.
Yeah. You'd be wrapping your body up in a rag, not putting a cool rag on your face.
Yeah.
And this gentleman, is this the guy that was going up against bin Laden he was at odds with bin Laden? Is it the same guy?
No, when I say fighting with, the two main targets that I had, they fought in conjunction with bin Laden against the Russians in Afghanistan back in the Soviet invasion.
Right.
And so they were real, proper al-Qaeda. They were not students, idealists that were radicalized.
This is the same guy with the PhD.
Yes.
Who also has real-time war experience and is spiritually connected to this movement.
Oh, yes. He was a leader. They were the real deal. In fact, the Attorney General called it one of the single greatest disruptions of al-Qaeda ever carried out by our government at that point.
Right.
And that was a meaningful thing to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think you'd asked about, what was it like living with them? Well, I knew zero about Islam before this case. I mean, I knew it existed, and you knew it was in the Middle East. But when you go into a mosque, any mosque really, it's not like going into your Catholic church, your Baptist church. There are lines on the floor, and you are literally touching shoulder to shoulder with someone. And ironically, I would have ended up right in the middle of that crowd. It's like packing 30 people into an elevator.
Really?
It's like that.
Right.
And you're going through the prayer ritual, and then after that, there's a time where you sit around and have tea and basically talk. And then
Socializing.
Yeah, and then you go do other things, and then you'll have a meal the morning or the night or whatnot. So it's just a constant treadmill. You're just with these guys. With the.
Are there other Westerners around you?
There was one other one, and these guys. It was problematic because he was asking a million questions, and we were afraid they were going to think he was a government plan to kill him.
Yeah.
And he was just legitimately interested.
Sure.
And I kept wanting to tell the guy, you need to shut up.
Right.
Leave these guys alone.
So you were living 24 hours a day, completely undercover all the time.
For a long time, I lived there. Yeah.
And after 3 years, how did that case end? How did
It ended in the arrest of one person who had gone over to a training camp in Pakistan, which actually the U.S. government had missed prior to this case. And he came back after he'd been trained. Well, now he's a wild card. Mm-hmm. And even though he was a lower level guy in the grander scheme of things, you can't have a guy like that floating around. And so they ended up having to arrest him. When they arrest him, they have to discovery. They have to disclose. So they decided to bring the entire case down.
And how was your reintegration back from that case?
Reintegration is like, show up to the office on this day. You got a backlog.
That was it.
Yeah.
New caseload. You got work to catch up on. Good job, by the way, though. You didn't even get that?
Other than that, it's pretty accurate.
Right. But you did other things. You did murder for hires. You did a bunch of other cases that were criminal side, side of the house, as we call it.
I've done standalone cartel. Yeah. I've done money laundering for street gangs. I've done murder for hire as an assassin. I've done a whole host of other cases. Yeah. Right.
And you picked that persona that I always use it because everybody knows with Breaking Bad, the Walter White character, but you do have that way about you, right? That mysterious, evil way that you can turn on and off. Did they all see that side of you?
Except the public corruption.
Right.
Which is actually, ironically, some of my favorite cases because there's nothing I hate more.
Yes.
Nothing I hate more than a corrupt policeman or officer of the law.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Right by them, there's a politician.
Yeah. Yeah, they're soft criminals, but the most deadliest. And
those are much more affable.
Yeah, when you put a politician, a corrupt politician, or a corrupt cop in jail, there's no feeling like that.
It's
perfect. Yeah, it is. So, Terry, if you can, since you left the Bureau and your history of developing and participating in developing a cyber unit and everything you've done contributing to it, you're now out of the game, right? You're not out of the game, but you're on
I'm private.
The private side of it.
Right.
What do you see the emerging threats for cyber and the world of cyber to be?
Well, boy, Giovanni, that's a fantastic question. And I would mention before, I don't know if I brought it up, but I actually wrote the first online covert employee undercover school training to get people to let them benefit from the tradecraft that I developed on the fly doing that undercover back in the 90s. And I monitored what was going on in the world. So, for example, let's take the Silk Road. Everyone's heard of that. That was on what's called the dark web tour. And it was someone on there running a market where he would connect people who had drugs or guns or fake passports with people who wanted to buy them. And then he would take a cut in the middle. Well, the FBI did a really good job of just the traditional investigative techniques of catching him. Well, law enforcement evolves, criminals evolve faster and usually better. So what they've done now is the dark web stuff is now old news. They do new things now where they've moved off of the dark web, and they'll use services like Telegram, where you'll have sort of automated bots that say, oh, thank you for, what's that? You say you're interested in heroin? Okay, well, I can connect you with this one supplier. Right. And it will sort of automatedly broker the deal. But here's the catch. And think about this as you think about how you would prosecute this traditionally without using an undercover technique. So you decide you're an undercover, you're the investigator, you want to buy some heroin so you can prosecute me. Okay. So you make the transaction, you do it in Bitcoin, or actually there's virtual currencies that are more difficult than Bitcoin to trace. So your money trail is going to end very quickly. So you can't do it that way. So you say, okay, fine. He's going to ship it to me. I will go through the investigative process, go to UPS or FedEx or whatever, figure out where it came from, and I'll have him run down quickly. They use a technique from foreign counterintelligence, from spies, called dead drops, where like, okay, your product will be to you tomorrow at noon. Well, tomorrow at noon, they say, you get a text saying, hey, and a picture, and it says, go to this park at these exact GPS coordinates. Here's a picture of a tree. There's a rock on the ground. It's a fake rock. Your drugs are underneath it. You're like, the guy's already come and gone by the time you get that text. Yeah. And the text came from from overseas, so you can't trace that. Right. So then you get it. You're like, where do you go with that? Yeah. How are you going to get that guy who sold you heroin? And so then that's the problem now. And it's actually a tough problem. And undercover is almost the only way you're ever going to penetrate an operation like that.
The platform for that's got to be far more expensive than what we've been doing. Like physical undercover is expensive, but I can't imagine for you to set up, what do you have to set up, multiple computer systems? Well,
you have a digital identity.
That's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah. So you're going to have to figure out, how do I set up a digital identity that is going to pass the smell test with these guys? And then that digital identity is going to, of course, have to be tied to a physical identity. But what you have to do is you have to just pull back and do just the template like everyone's taught in school. Okay, evaluate the organization. What are your positives? What are your negatives to getting into this thing? How could you possibly do it? What's going to be your approach vector? And then come up with a plan and then try to execute on that plan.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, there's so much more manpower. You can't use surveillance anymore. You can't do physical surveillance anymore because you don't know where the drop is going to be. Just using those drop locations, you never know where it's going to be.
And it's very perilous because one of the investigative tools are things called court orders and subpoenas. Well, a lot of times these guys will intentionally host a small part of their operation with a friendly, so that if he's served with paper, we call it, then he notifies this guy, hey, watch it, they're coming for you. Yeah. I got rid of the logs, so there's a dead end, but it's a tripwire for them.
Right. But everything evolves, right? Listen, when I started working on the cover work in the 90s, the first Kel they gave me, the first Niagara they gave me was the size of a VCR tape. By the time I retired, it was a microphone on an ant's ass.
It would burn you up.
Yeah. So everything is ever evolving. So I have faith in the new generation of kids. I have faith in the fact that you're going to continue on the private sector and always develop things. So it's not like, oh my God, they're going to beat us. Nobody's ever beaten Uncle Sam.
You came in the first day and they didn't know how to turn on a computer.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Think of the recruits that are going to the FBI today. They've been living online. They've been living in an overt, covert world, if you will. You know what I mean? They're going to know how to work the backside of that.
They have an advantage, and you're right. Yeah, there's never going to be a doom and gloom. We will adapt. The law enforcement will adapt to catch them. There'll be a little bit of a lead time, But yeah, it's just an ongoing.
We always have. Walk around this museum. It's 3 floors of ever-evolving evolution of law enforcement and organized crime.
Exactly.
So we started out with writing on pieces of paper. We got into you walk through these floors and you see how it's evolved into the electronic age and what it's going to be in the cyber age.
Absolutely.
And hopefully your contributions to the museum, we'll do some cyber stuff here too. But
Whatever I can do to help.
Yeah, thanks.
Terry, thanks for coming on the show again for our second interview with you.
Of course.
I think we got a lot of insight that we haven't had before. I think the 3 of us were able to talk about things collectively that we've been through, and it's been a great experience. It's been awesome having you here. I feel humbled to sit beside you, and I appreciate you so much, and thank you again.
I'm humbled you would invite me here. Thank you.
No,
Tom.
thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your stories, and hopefully everybody got a glimpse into the cyber world, and hopefully you can come back and contribute to the museum on the cyber side of it as we grow. So thanks for being here on Inside the Life, Terry. Thanks.
Of course.
For behind-the-scenes photos, merchandise, and exclusive content, visit InsideTheLife.org. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts.